This is the prototype flash pack for the Psion Organiser, and I've done a PCB for this. All this circuitry is on this board. They've come back. One thing that I did do, I made them thinner. I'm not really sure why I did that. I think it's because on the SD pack I needed a bit more space, and I made these 1mm thick, and really they should be 1.6, but I have populated one, and there's a couple of problems. One I knew about after I'd sent it off, and that's the A14 shouldn't be attached from the counters. That should just come from the segment register, because this is actually a 16K segmented data pack. And the other problem was a KiCad problem here, and I didn't have a track joined up where there should be one, and that means there's no supply on that chip, so it didn't work too well. Once I fixed those problems though, and I've made another one, they do actually work. So this is currently formatting, and on the XP as opposed to the LZ gives you a bar graph, but the XP gives you actually a count of blocks, which is nice because 512 is the size of the pack. So you can see exactly where you are and how fast it's taking to format it. And you can also see the size of the pack, which is nice. So electrically, yeah, not too much problems on the board there. Mechanically, well, bit of a mess really, I suppose. So this is a data pack. This has got an EEPROM in it. I'll take it out, and that's the board there. Now if you have a look at the connector, you can see that if I put the connector and align the bottom of the PCB, is that in focus? Yeah, almost. Move that out of the way. So you can see that the connector's not actually in the right position. The one I've got in the organiser here, I've lifted the connector up. So that's just something you can do in assembly time. Another problem with the connector, if you look here, you can see that the original has its connections to the PCB underneath the connector, whereas I've got a standard one with this right angle arrangement. Now that's sort of fine. I can fit everything on the board, apart from, and if I find a, here's a, oh no, I've got to find a data pack now. Let's find a data pack. So the problem is that there's actually a wall on this plastic part of the case which runs down the back of this connector, and that fouls on these pins here. Now what you can do is just cut the wall away, which I've done on every part that I tried to find. So I've done that on a few, and that does work. So then this will actually, instead of fouling, you can see it fouls there on the wall, it actually fits in, so there's not really a problem there at all. So, well, if you cut that away it's fine. I have sourced these, they're quite expensive though, these connectors here. You can still get them. These are a lot cheaper. The other problem is that this fits in here. Well, if I put the original in, you can see that it's pretty loose, and it'll actually fall out. This one I made it slightly larger. It does fit. I had to file this down a little bit to get it to fit, and it's still not fitting properly. It's a little bit too long as well, or rather this connector is too far that way, which means when you push it into the organiser it doesn't fit totally properly. There's a bit of the data pack protruding, so I need to move this connector that way by about, well, I think it's slightly less than a millimetre, but something of that order. I also need to take some components away that I've put here, because there's some components on the edge here which foul on this bit of, this tiny little wall here, and the width isn't quite right either. It's a little bit too wide, so it needs to slim down a little bit. None of that is really too much of a problem. So there's going to have to be another board anyway, because of the track problems here. I have to put a wire on, which is a pain, and I also have to cut a pin off. One of these chips somewhere has got pin 3 missing. Or cut a track. This one's got a track cut actually. So I need a new board for that, and I'm going to have to resize the PCB arrangement to make it fit better. That does fit fairly well once you carve it down a bit and you actually rearrange the size a little bit. But that connector's too far forward, so the pack doesn't fit properly. So at the moment I'm using bare boards. So so the board works, the circuit works, which is nice, which it had to really, because this did. So I've also tried putting larger flash chips on there. I had some 29 FO40s. These are 28 FO20s, which should have given me a 1 meg flash pack, but it didn't work, and it could be because the programming algorithm is different on the 040s, well, the 29 series. So I need to look at that and see whether that is the case. So it might be possible to change the flash formatter code, but that's probably quite a large job for not really a lot of advantage. So I think another revision of this board is next, and resize all the mechanical stuff sorted out and the electrical stuff, and then it should be a case of just putting them together.